That's our house up there.
I recently received a call from a neighbor asking me to help. He had a brush fire that was out of control. He was attempting to burn some thorns and stickers off of his pasture area where his cows had been grazing. And in his attempt to do that, later in the day, the wind kicked up, creating an out of control situation. So I grabbed my rogue hoe, rake, and shovel. I tossed those items onto the four-wheeler, got them relatively secured, and decided I might need a couple other things before heading out to the scene. I grabbed a cooler of water bottles to bring to the guys out there. In addition to working around fire, it was an unseasonably warm day, and those guys had been putting in some physical labor, and I thought they would enjoy something cool to drink. I headed down the road, leaving Chewy behind, moving just as quickly as I could. I knew time was of the essence. I had already called our local dispatcher and the forestry service to get as many volunteers on the scene as possible. Right as I pulled up to the property entrance, the first of the volunteers had arrived on the scene. I suggested he take the four-wheeler and assess the situation and develop a strategy as the other volunteers were on their way. While he was taking charge of the situation, I took my tools to where the fire had jumped the property line and was threatening a neighbor's pasture as well. Once the fire on the neighboring property had been managed, we then returned to the hilltop and saw a few other volunteers arriving on the scene. I took the quad down the hill and helped them bring the leaf blower backpacks up to the top of the hill, where they began extinguishing the fire by blowing it back onto itself. Having never seen this technique, it was quite impressive and very effective. The battle lines had been drawn by the volunteers, and the plan was to let the fire burn its way down to a small creek just at the foot of the hill. That would then force the fire back into an area that had already been burned. The cattle wanted nothing to do with the flames, smoke, or the noise of the leaf blowers. They were out of there. The fire began to burn back onto itself as planned, and it was stopped by the small creek at the base of the hill. With just a few hot spots left to extinguish, it didn't take long for our volunteers to have everything under control. If you're living rural, one of the things to consider is becoming a member of your local fire protection district. It usually costs between $30 and $40 a year, and in a situation like this, it would alleviate you of the unforeseen cost and expense of having the fire crew show up to put out your fire.